Hey there! Tonight you find yourself in the heart of early medieval England, standing before a timber mead hall, where firelight spills from the doorway and the cold night presses close behind you. The hush of the frosted world outside fades as you cross the threshold, replaced by the promise of warmth and the low, steady hum of voices. Inside, the glow of the hearth dances across crowded benches, warriors shoulder to shoulder, laughter rising and falling in bursts. The scent of roasting meat and honeyed mead blends with wood smoke, wrapping you in a cocoon of comfort and expectation. Before the night is done, you'll witness a ritual that binds every soul in the room and uncover a secret tradition that could change what you believe about Saxon loyalty. What you learn tonight might stay with you longer than you expect. The consequences of this evening will echo long after the fire dies down. So, if you genuinely enjoy these immersive journeys into worlds lit by fire and memory, go ahead and like or subscribe, but only if it feels right. And while you're settling in, let me know in the comments where you're joining us from and what time it is. It's always a wonder to see how bedtime stories gather people from every corner of the world. Dim the lights, get cozy, and let the hush of the hall settle around you. Tonight, you're not just a guest. You're part of a gathering older than any written word. The story is about to draw you in, and there's no turning back. Once you enter, you become part of the tale. It is evening in early medieval England, and you stand before a timber mead hall, its doorway glowing with firelight against the chill. The air is thick with the promise of warmth and the hum of voices, while the world outside lies wrapped in darkness and frost. As you step inside, the scent of roasting meat and honeyed mead rises to greet you, mingling with wood smoke that curls around the busy forms of warriors and kin. Benches are crowded, laughter spills in bursts, and the central hearth blazes, casting every face in shifting gold. You sense the old woods creak beneath your boots, a subtle reminder of the many feet that have come before you. In short, you have entered the living heart of a Saxon mead hall, where the walls hold both memory and expectation. Here, belonging is earned with every shared story. Lose your place, and you might find yourself on the outside looking in. You take in the scene. Thick oak beams arch overhead, their surfaces smoke, blackened by years of fires, holding up a roof heavy with secrets. The central hearth is a living thing, its flames snapping and swirling, sending sparks up into the dark. Shadows move across the faces of those gathered, warriors in wool and leather, their hair braided or loose, cheeks flushed from the heat. On the benches, men and women lean close, voices low, sharing tales that drift like wisps above the noise. The warmth here is not just from the fire, it's the warmth of kinship, of shared memory and danger. If you step too far from the circle, you risk being left in the cold. The cost of isolation is real. All around, the soundscape is thick, a low hum of conversation, the scrape of knives on trenchers, the occasional sharp bark of laughter. Somewhere near the hearth, a Scots voice rises with the rhythm of an old song, weaving words that stitch past battles to tonight's feast. You catch the glint of an arm ring passed from one hand to another, a sign of favor, a marker of loyalty. The mead flows freely, thick and sweet, poured into cups that have seen generations of hands. Even the youngest children, tucked at the feet of their elders, seem to sense the charged air. Every gesture here holds meaning, and every bond is watched. If trust is broken, the consequences are swift. A sudden hush ripples through the room as a heavy wooden door thuds shut against the wind. Conversation stills, and every eye turns to the head of the hall, where the Lord, Edric, broad-shouldered and quick-eyed, stands to address his people. His cloak is rich with embroidery, but it's the way he holds himself, grounded and alert, that marks him as someone to follow. You feel the stakes shift now. You're not just an observer, but a participant in something that might shape the fate of every soul here. What happens next will echo for seasons to come. Edric raises a horn filled with mead, his voice carrying over the crackle of the fire. He speaks of the cold outside and the need for unity within these walls. The ritual is simple, but its weight is immense. Each person in turn lifts their cup, pledging loyalty not just to Edric, but to the hall itself, to the memory of ancestors, and to each other. In this moment, the boundaries between kin and stranger blur. Everyone here is bound by oath and by the promise of warmth against the world's chill. To break faith is to risk everything. The cost of betrayal is exile, or worse. As the pledges circle the room, you notice the way some hands tremble, while others grip their cups with steady confidence. This is no empty gesture. The words spoken here carry the force of law, of survival. To break faith with the hall is to invite exile, or worse. The old stories of betrayal, of redemption, are never far from mind, and tonight they hover just out of reach, woven into every glance and gesture. The hall holds its breath, waiting to see who will keep their word. A single broken oath could unravel the night. The fire pops, and for a heartbeat, the hall seems suspended in golden silence. Then, laughter returns, louder and freer than before, as if the ritual has swept away the last of the night's unease. You realize that this cycle, feasting, oath-making, remembering, is as vital as the food itself. It is how the bonds of loyalty and memory are forged, and how the community survives the long dark between seasons. If the ritual falters, the whole fabric could unravel. Without these traditions, the hall would not endure. You shift on the bench, feeling the press of bodies on either side. The person to your left, Ulfric, a sly-eyed warrior with a scar down his cheek, leans in to share a joke about a rival clan's ill-fated hunt. His words are sharp, but there's no malice here. Even rivalry is softened by the glow of the hearth. You laugh, and the sound is taken up by those nearby, rippling outward, until it seems the whole hall is breathing in sync. For now, all tension is eased, but alliances are always shifting. Friendships can turn on a word. Suddenly, the skald changes the tune, and the song becomes a chant for the dead, names spoken into the smoke, each syllable a thread tying tonight's feast to the battles of old. The children are silent now, listening with wide eyes, learning what matters most in this place. The stakes are clear. To belong is to remember, and to be remembered is to live on. You sense that even in celebration, the presence of loss is never far away. Forgetting is the one thing no one dares. Memory is survival here. A platter of roasted venison passes, the meat glistening in the firelight. The aroma is sharp and sweet, mingling with the tang of wood smoke. You take a bite, and the taste is rich, earthy, tinged with the honeyed flavor of mead spilled from a careless hand. The food is both sustenance and symbol, a reminder that survival here is a collective effort. Every mouthful is earned, every cup shared a pledge renewed. If the sharing stops, so does the hope of another winter. Hunger is always waiting at the door. At the far end of the hall, a group of young warriors begins a boast game, each trying to outdo the last with tales of courage and cunning. Alfric's voice rises above the din, claiming he once faced down a wild boar with nothing but a dagger. The others jeer, but their eyes are bright with admiration and just a touch of disbelief. These stories are more than entertainment. They are training for the trials to come. The next danger could arrive before the song ends. The unprepared may not survive. A Scop's voice rises with the rhythm of an old song. The future of the hall hangs in the balance. It is early evening in the heart of Anglo-Saxon England. You find yourself pressed among many souls inside a timber mead hall, the air swelling with the heat of a living hearth. Voices hum low and steady, wrapping around you like a warm cloak. Oak beams arch overhead, thick as a giant's arm, their surfaces darkened by years of smoke and stories. Each rafter seems to hold its own secret, and the roof above gathers laughter and argument, letting them drift like ghosts among the shadows. The fire's orange light flickers across the faces of warriors, eyes sharp with memory, hands wrapped around battered cups. Here, the walls do more than hold up the roof. They hold the weight of belonging, gathering kin and guest into a single, breathing body. To stand outside this warmth, you sense, would mean facing the night alone, with consequences you'd rather not test. You notice how the mead hall's architecture does more than shield you from the wind. The beams and planks were shaped by hands you'll never meet, yet their invitation is immediate, physical. Benches run close together, so your shoulder brushes the next, and every sound, every cough, every whispered joke travels unchallenged from one end of the hall to the other. In this place, privacy belongs to the woods outside, not to the warmth within. The hearth burns at the center like a promise, drawing everyone inward, its glow a steady anchor against the cold and the unknown. If you turn away from this circle, you risk losing your place in the warmth, and with it, your claim to safety. As you settle onto the creaking bench, you feel the subtle pressure of eyes, a nod here, a sidelong glance there, as if the room itself is testing whether you belong. The line between guest and kin blurs quickly when the mead is flowing and the night presses close beyond the walls. What you say will be carried by smoke and memory, not only by those who sit beside you. The hall is a vessel, but also a stage, and every word weighs more heavily in the dense, expectant air. You realize that your actions tonight may echo longer than you intend, and that a careless word could mark you for seasons to come. There is a rhythm here you sense before you understand it. The clatter of wooden cups, the hiss of lobs shifting in the fire, the rise and fall of laughter. All these sounds are threads in a tapestry woven from old loyalties and new ambitions. You catch the scent of roasting meat, rich, greasy, just a little wild, mingling with the honeyed sharpness of mead. The taste lingers on your tongue, sweet at first, then stinging, as if to remind you that every comfort here is hard-won. Soon You'll discover that comfort is never without its price, and the whole expects something in return. A warrior at your side leans in, his voice rough from too many cold mornings and too much smoke. He shares a story, half boast, half warning, about a hunt gone wrong and a wolf cleverer than its pursuers. His words hang in the air, drawing laughter and a few knowing groans. But beneath the humor is a lesson. Survival depends on more than strength. It is the rituals, these shared stories, the communal meals, the silent agreements that bind the whole together. If you fail to take part, you may not be trusted when it matters most, and trust is the currency that buys your safety here. There is no shield between you and the Lord, who sits nearest the hearth, his face illuminated by firelight and expectation. The placement is deliberate. The closer you are to the center, the higher you're standing, but the more exposed you become. Every movement matters. The whole rewards confidence, but punishes arrogance. A delicate balance learned by watching others fail. The stakes are not just social, they are survival. To be accepted here is to be protected when winter bites or war drums sound. If you misstep, you could find yourself alone when you most need allies, a risk that shadows every gesture. Someone across the hall raises a cup in a silent toast, and you notice how quickly the gesture is mirrored by others. The act is more than politeness. It is a ritual, a way of reaffirming the invisible web that holds the group together. You realize that the mead cup is not just a vessel for drink, but a symbol of trust. To drink with another is to acknowledge a shared fate. The consequence is simple. Those who refuse the cup remain outsiders, and the hall remembers who stands apart. The atmosphere thickens with the haze of wood smoke and the press of warm bodies. Sweat beads on your brow despite the chill outside, and you feel the comforting itch of wool against your skin. Every sense is heightened here. The roar of the hearth, the roughness of the bench beneath you, the mingled scents of sweat, meat, and mead, they all blur into a single pulsing moment that feels both ancient and immediate. To ignore these sensations is to miss the heart of the hall, and to miss the heart is to risk being overlooked. At intervals, a scop, a singer of tales, rises to his feet, his voice cutting through the murmur with a song about lost battles and the price of loyalty. The melody is simple, but the words are sharp, full of names you don't know but can almost taste. Each verse is a reminder that memory is the strongest shield in the hall. To be remembered is to matter. To be forgotten is to vanish. This is not just poetry. It is a ledger, a record of debts and favors paid in blood and bread. If you fail to participate, you risk more than embarrassment. You risk being forgotten. And in this hall, that is a fate to fear. The fire crackles as a dog noses its way under the table, searching for scraps. Children dart between the benches, their laughter rising above the deeper voices. Proof that not every ritual here is solemn. There is room for play, even as the adults keep a wary eye on the door. The sense of community is practical, not sentimental. When the wind howls outside and the rafters creak, you understand why. The hall is a bulwark against the unpredictable world beyond. If you do not contribute to this shield, you may find it does not protect you when the world presses in. No, As you take another sip of mead, you notice the subtle choreography of the evening. People trade places, shifting to make room for newcomers or closing ranks around old friends. The movement is fluid, but never random. A nod here, a shared joke there, a language of belonging that needs no words. You realize that in this world, ritual is as much about what is left unsaid as what is spoken. If you misread these cues, you risk losing your place in the dance, and the dance is the only way to remain inside the circle. The fire's warmth is matched only by the heat of the stories that circle the room. Some are boasts, some confessions, each wrapped in the soft glow of nostalgia or sharpened by rivalry. The stories serve a dual purpose: entertainment for the moment and a subtle recalibration of the social order. To be the subject of a tale, good or bad, is to have your place in the hall defined. You sense that to be ignored is to become invisible, and invisibility is a danger that lingers even after the fire dies down. Suddenly, a disagreement flares between two warriors over the details of a raid. Voices rise, but the tension is tempered by the presence of the Lord, whose steady gaze brings silence. There is a lesson here, as old as the beams overhead. Conflict is allowed, even encouraged, but only within the boundaries set by the group. To step beyond those limits is to threaten the fragile peace that the hall demands. The Mead Hall's rituals are not just for show. They are the glue that keeps the group from tearing itself apart. If you break these rules, you risk exile. And exile is a colder fate than any winter night. At intervals, a scop, a singer of tales, rises to his feet. It is early evening in the Timber Mead Hall. The warmth of the central hearth draws you in from the sharp chill outside, while benches fill with warriors whose cloaks still drip from the persistent drizzle. The air is thick with wood smoke and honeyed mead, the fire's glow painting shifting patterns on every face. All eyes settle on the Lord by the hearth, his seat just a little higher, his presence commanding even in silence. You ease onto the bench, feeling the rough wood beneath your hand, and wait as the cup-bearer weaves through the crowd with practiced, almost hypnotic grace. The first mead cup is raised and passed, the gold of the vessel catching the flicker of the flames. For a breath, the hall seems to hold its own heartbeat, suspended in anticipation. In this pause, you sense that something important is about to unfold. The ritual begins, its rhythm slow and deliberate. Each movement is careful, each pause heavy with meaning. The cupbearer glides between benches, never spilling a drop, nodding to those who matter, glancing past those who do not. You notice the hierarchy in the smallest gestures, how a cup lingers in one hand, the briefest hesitation before another sip is allowed. The honeyed mead is sweet, almost cloying, and the heat from the fire seeps into your bones as you lift the cup, you drink. And in that moment, you are both guest and participant, inside and outside the circle of trust. The ritual's rhythm draws everyone in. A single misstep, you realize, could change everything for you. Around you, a low murmur of anticipation grows, a tide of voices just below the threshold of song. Each person's turn with the cup is a quiet test, a subtle negotiation of status and favor that no one names aloud. The warrior's eyes flicker, some with pride, some with calculation, all aware that every sip is a silent contract. You see how quickly the mood can shift. One misplaced gesture, a too eager reach for the cup, and suddenly the warmth feels fragile, as if the fire itself might gutter out. Here, the smallest action carries weight. The next moment could tip the balance. In this hall, the ritual is more than a toast. It is a binding of memory and loyalty. Sharing the mead is as potent as any oath sworn in daylight. You feel it in the jump of your pulse when the cup is pressed into your palm, in the brief wait of the Lord's gaze. The order of drinking is never random. It is a living map of the hall's alliances, grudges, and silent ambitions. If you break the rhythm, you risk more than embarrassment. You risk exclusion, a quiet but lasting lowering of your place. The consequences linger, even after the cup has moved on. One mistake could echo for seasons. The fire snaps, and shadows leap across the beams. The cupbearer's embroidered sleeve brushes your arm as she passes, her face unreadable, her movements practiced to invisibility. For a moment, you imagine her as a conductor guiding an orchestra, the music here made of breath, laughter, and the clink of metal. The warrior's hands are rough, their nails rimmed with earth, yet they cradle the cup with a reverence usually reserved for holy things. In this moment, the mead is more than drink. It is the thread that stitches the evening together. The ritual's harmony is delicate, and any discord could unravel it. You sense how easily this unity could be lost. A voice breaks out in song, low and gravelly, rising above the hum. It is not the Lord who sings, but a grizzled warrior at the far end of the bench. The lyrics are half remembered, the melody bending with the curves of the smoke. Laughter follows, rolling through the hall like a gust of wind, and for a moment the tension breaks. You exhale, realizing you had been holding your breath. The stakes of belonging are never far from the surface, and the laughter is a reminder of what's at risk. The line between comfort and caution is thin. The cup returns to the Lord, who lifts it with a knowing smile, pausing just long enough for every eye to settle on him. His words are brief, but each one lands with the weight of expectation. He toasts to battles won, to those lost, to the hope that the mead will keep the old ghosts at bay. The warriors answer with a deep rumble, the sound echoing up into the rafters. In this hall, toasting is a kind of magic, one that binds but also divides. Every toast draws the lines a little clearer. The next words could shift alliances. You feel the warmth of the fire on your face, the chill of the world held at bay by walls thick with history. The cupbearer leans close, her breath scented faintly with honey, and you catch the smallest glimmer of a smile. She knows the secrets of the hall, the stories that ripple beneath the surface. The act of serving is its own kind of power, a role as central as any sword-wielding warrior. You realize that every ritual here is layered, every gesture a performance with real consequences. The balance of power is always shifting, just beneath the surface. One misstep could change your standing overnight. Toward the far wall, an argument flares, a sharp word, a hand slamming the table. The Lord's gaze narrows, and the noise dies as quickly as it began. The ritual resumes without comment, but the tension lingers, a warning that the peace of the hall is always negotiable. You see now that loyalty is not a given. It is earned, tested, and reinforced in moments like these. The mead is sweet, but the rules are iron. One misstep, and the cost is clear. The boundaries here are always under watch. For a heartbeat, you remember how fragile this warmth truly is. The world outside is cold, uncertain, and full of danger. Inside the mead hall, survival depends on more than strength. It relies on knowing your place, reading the room, and honoring the rituals that keep everyone together. The stakes are plain. Without these bonds, the community would splinter, and the safety of the hall would dissolve into the night. Belonging is a privilege, not a right. The line between guest and outcast is never far away. Every action shapes your future here. Just as the rhythm settles, a serving boy stumbles, nearly dropping a platter of roasted meat. Laughter bursts out, the kind that covers both relief and shared embarrassment. The boy blushes, but is quickly pulled back into the flow by a gentle nudge from the cupbearer. You see now that even small mistakes are forgiven, so long as the ritual continues, so long as the harmony is restored. The hall breathes as one, but the lesson remains. Unity is a fragile thing. One careless moment could still cost dearly. The fire crackles, sending up sparks that swirl in the smoky air. You take another sip, and the warmth of the mead spreads through your chest. The taste is floral and wild, a memory of summer captured in amber. Around you, voices rise and fall. Stories are traded like currency, and laughter weaves through the rafters. The ritual of the cup has shifted the mood. The hall is looser now, more alive. This is how memory is made, and how loyalty is forged. The bonds formed tonight may be tested tomorrow. Night presses in on the timber walls of the Anglo-Saxon Mead Hall, early medieval England, where you sit shoulder to shoulder with warriors whose laughter thrums like the pulse of the fire. Platters of roasted meat appear, their aroma thick and irresistible, and you reach for a slice with hands still tingling from the cold. The feast sprawls before you, abundance heaped on rough boards, steaming venison, coarse bread, and bowls of honeyed mead that catch the flicker of firelight. Yet, as you take your first bite, the taste is edged with memory, a reminder that every mouthful is a victory over hunger. The warmth that seeps into your bones is hard-won, and you know it could vanish with the next bad harvest. The mead hall is no mere dining room. Here, each gesture is loaded with meaning. The way you pass a trencher, share a crust, or break a bone for marrow. You watch as a bearded man tears bread. His hands deliberate, then offers half to the boy beside him. This is more than kindness. In a world where famine hovers, sharing food is the currency of survival and trust. You sense the eyes of the hall on each exchange, weighing generosity against self-preservation. One careless hoarding, one snub, could outlast the taste of meat for seasons. The low hum of song rises, stitched with laughter and the scrape of knives against bone. You catch snatches of old tales, heroes outwitting monsters, kin avenging lost kin, fortunes won and lost by the fire's edge. These stories are as nourishing as the food. You realize you are not just eating, you are learning the rules of belonging. Each tale is a thread in the tapestry of memory that binds you to the hall and its people. You glance at your cup, the rim sticky with mead, and remember that even this simple vessel is a badge of place. The cupbearer, her stride steady, her gaze sharp, moves from bench to bench, filling and refilling, her presence as essential as the meal itself. She lingers at the head table, where the Lord's portion is carved with ceremony. Her role, though silent, is as visible as the banners that hang above the hearth. The meaning is clear. Every role, no matter how humble, is stitched into the ritual fabric of the feast. Outside, the night is sharp with frost, but here the heat from the central hearth pushes back the cold. You feel sweat bead along your brow, mixing oddly with the chill that clings to your boots. The contrast is jarring, a reminder that the world beyond the hall is always waiting, indifferent to stories or song. Yet, within these walls, the line between feast and famine blurs. Every bite is both celebration and test. A sudden hush falls as the Lord stands, his presence commanding even in the smoky half-light. He raises a horn, and all eyes turn. His toast is simple, but the weight of it lands heavy, to peace, to loyalty, to the memory of those lost. You drink, not because you are thirsty, but because it would be unthinkable not to. The act is more than custom. It is a silent oath, binding you to the faces around you. In that moment, you understand that loyalty is not forged on the field, but at the table. The meat is rich, but you chew slowly, aware of scarcity. You notice that the platters empty in careful order, elders and guests first, then warriors, then the youngest. Nothing is wasted. Bones are cracked for marrow, juices sopped with the last crusts of bread. Even scraps are gathered for the dogs curled beneath the benches. This choreography of hunger and generosity is its own ritual. If you misstep, if you take more than your share, you risk more than a scolding. You risk exile from the circle. A tall, scarred man at your side leans in, voice pitched low. He tells you of a winter when the hall went dark, the stores emptied, and the only thing that endured was the memory of shared feasts. His story is not a warning. It is a lesson. What you do tonight will be remembered when the platters are bare. The stakes are not just food, you realize, but the very memory of belonging. In plain words, your place at the table tomorrow depends on what you give, not only what you take. As the meal winds on, the air thickens with the scent of singed fat and spilled mead. The smoke hangs low, blurring faces, softening voices. Someone begins a song, a melody you do not know, but soon you are humming along. The tune is simple, the words easy to learn. You find yourself swept up, not only in the music, but in the act of joining. The chorus grows rough and warm, and for a moment the walls seem to pulse with the sound. The feast is not endless. Soon the platters are empty, and the laughter subsides into a quieter rhythm. Some stretch by the fire, others lean close, trading secrets or dreams. The youngest nod off, heads pillowed on arms sticky with grease. You watch as the cupbearer makes one last round, her steps measured, her eyes flicking from face to face. Every gesture, every passing of bread or cup is weighed and remembered. A sudden gust rattles the door, sending a draught across the hall. The fire flares, shadows leaping, and for an instant you glimpse the fragile boundary between plenty and want. The warmth feels thinner now, the songs more tentative. Yet you realize this is the true test of community. When the feast is over, what remains is the memory of having faced hunger together. The sense of belonging is not guaranteed. It is earned, mouthful by mouthful. You catch yourself watching the faces around you, lined with age, flushed with drink, set in quiet determination. Each person here has staked something on this night, whether a story, a kindness, or a simple act of sharing. You understand, in a way that stings, that tomorrow's hunger is never far. But tonight, you are part of the ritual that keeps the cold at bay. The stakes have shifted. It is not only about survival, but about being remembered. The heat of the hearth, the press of bodies, the taste of roasted meat, they linger as the night deepens. You realize that every feast is a rehearsal for hardship. The rituals, the songs, the careful order of sharing, all teach you how to endure. You are not only fed, you are fortified. In plain speech, these moments build a memory that will outlast the food itself. The last of the mead is poured, and the Lord speaks again, this time softer. He names those who cannot join the feast, the lost, the wandering, the dead. Each name is met with a murmur, a nod, a lifted cup. The ritual of remembrance is as binding as any oath. You feel the weight of it settle in your chest. Loss is present, but so is hope. You sit shoulder to shoulder with warriors in the timber mead hall, the air thick with the scent of roast boar and honeyed mead. The cup-bearer returns from the fire's edge, her steps slow and measured, drawing every gaze in the room. Above, the beams creak softly, while voices hum and fade like a distant tide. Each movement she makes seems to set the rhythm of the gathering, the flickering flames sharpening her intent. In that hush, you sense every eye following the cup, gliding from her hand to the next outstretched palm. The signal is silent, but unmistakable, a question hanging just a moment too long. You realize, with a quiet chill, that should the cup falter, the entire hall would feel the tremor. Here, ritual is woven as much from silence as from speech. The cup-bearer's name is murmured once, a whisper lost in smoke, but her authority is clear. She links guest and lord, friend and rival, with each pass of the cup. Beneath the laughter, you feel the tension. Every warrior meets her eyes, but never for too long. The mead is sweet and warming, loosening the cold knots in your chest. Her movements are precise, almost choreographed, and you sense she serves more than drink. She is the keeper of the hall's rules. If one link in this chain were to break, the consequences would ripple through the room, unsettling the fragile peace. In her hands, the cup becomes a quiet test of loyalty, memory, and alliances stitched together by firelight. The Lord's nod is subtle, but everyone notices. You remember stories told by the hearth. A single misstep with the cup could unravel months of careful diplomacy. The stakes are higher than they seem. A careless word, a falter, and warmth could shift to suspicion in a heartbeat. The cup-bearer never lets her guard drop, and neither do you, knowing what could be lost if the ritual slips. Outside, The winter wind rattles the walls. But inside, the journey of the cup binds you to the others. The rhythm of her steps becomes the gathering's pulse. Warriors lean in, eager but disciplined, hands ready but never reaching before their turn. The air is thick with anticipation. The hearths crackle, filling the silences between songs. Each time the cup returns to the Lord, the energy in the room resets, as if the ritual itself renews the hall's spirit. If this pattern broke, the unity it brings might fracture, leaving everyone exposed. There's a wryness in the cupbearer's glance when a boastful claim is made. She polices the boundaries of mirth and mischief with little more than a raised eyebrow. You watch a young warrior, flushed with pride, nearly speak out of turn. Her gaze stills him. The lesson is clear. Order is kept not by force, but by ritual and subtlety. In this world, trust is measured out, sip by sip, in the glow of the central fire. Without this measured trust, chaos would wait just beyond the shadows, ready to seep in. The mead's sweetness lingers as the cup circles the hall. You feel a flush in your cheeks, warmth in your belly, but the cupbearer remains poised, her focus unbroken. Firelight dances across her hands, turning the cup into a shifting mirror of faces and flames. Here, where words can wound, the act of drinking together is an unspoken pact. You sense the weight of memory. Each gathering, each cup passed, is a thread in the tapestry of the hall's history. Lose this ritual, and the tapestry would begin to unravel, leaving only loose ends. A sudden burst of laughter ripples down the benches, breaking the tension for a moment. The cupbearer allows herself a brief smile, and in that instant you glimpse the person beneath the role. Amid the gravity of the ritual, it's easy to forget she too is woven into this living community, bound by duty and habit. The room brightens, shadows dancing higher on the beams. In that moment, you understand that belonging is built on these fleeting, powerful moments. Without them, the foundation of community would be shaken, and the whole spirit would falter. You shift on the bench, the rough wood pressing into your legs, and glance around at the faces in the firelight. Each warrior has a story, and the cupbearer seems to know them all. Her eyes flicker from man to man, measuring, remembering. The order of service is no accident. Alliances and rivalries play out in the pattern of her path. You feel the subtle choreography of trust and doubt, hope and memory, pulsing through the room. Should that choreography falter, old wounds might reopen, threatening the fragile order. The scent of roasting meat mingles with the tang of smoke, grounding you in the present as the ritual stirs old memories. You recall a tale told earlier of a feast gone wrong, when a cupbearer's misstep sparked a feud that lasted generations. The cup is more than a vessel. It is a symbol of the whole's fragile unity. Every gesture, every pause, carries meaning, and you find yourself reading the room with new eyes. If these meanings were lost, unity would soon follow, and the hall would be left divided. Outside, wild animals prowl the dark, but within, the mead hall is a fortress of light and order. You feel the safety of numbers, the comfort of ritual, the weight of tradition pressing close. The cupbearer's steady hand is a shield against the chaos beyond these walls. For all their bravado, you realize, the warriors rely on her as much as the Lord's sword to keep the peace. Without her, even the strongest walls would not hold, and danger would seep in. The music shifts, the tempo rising as an old song begins. Voices join in, some tuneless, others deep and sure, filling the rafters with the sound of belonging. The cupbearer moves with the rhythm, her presence a constant as the mood lightens. You tap your foot, feeling the energy swirl around you, the fire crackling, sending sparks swirling into the smoky air. The room feels alive, but you sense how quickly that life could flicker out if the ritual were disturbed, leaving only silence. No one interrupts the cupbearer's path, not even the Lord. The ritual has its own authority, older than any single man. The cupbearer is both servant and sentinel, her role as fixed as the hearthstones. You realize that in this hall, power often moves quietly, in the hands of those who listen. Should her vigilance waver, the balance of power would shift, and the hall's harmony would be lost. With each round, the mead grows stronger, and so does the camaraderie. Boundaries between stranger and kin blur, laughter rising in pitch and frequency. The cupbearer's eyes miss nothing. A sharp word, a sudden silence. She steers the gathering with a tilt of the cup or a gentle word. You wonder how many quarrels she's averted, how many friendships sparked by her subtle grace. If her guidance faltered, the night could turn quickly, and celebration could sour. A stray log shifts in the hearth, sending a plume of sparks into the smoke. The cupbearer pauses, eyes following the arc of light, then resumes her circuit. You feel the room breathe with her, a collective exhale as the tension ebbs. The cup is offered, accepted, and returned, each exchange reinforcing the bonds that hold the whole together. The ritual is both shield and sword, keeping old wounds from reopening. Without it, peace would be fleeting, and old grudges could flare. The stakes, you realize, are nothing less than survival. In a world where alliances are fragile and enemies lurk beyond the firelight, these rituals are the glue that binds the community. Without them, trust would crumble, and peace would dissolve into chaos. The cupbearer's craft is as vital as any warrior's blade. If her work were neglected, all could be lost, and the whole story would end. In the timber bones of this early medieval hall, where the wind claws at the daubed walls and shadows stretch long across packed earth, you find yourself drawn toward the heart of the gathering. The Lord, broad-shouldered and silver-eyed, lifts a hand for silence, and the hush spreads like a ripple through the benches. Warriors edge closer, boots scraping, faces flickering between firelight and doubt. The air thickens with the scent of roasting mutton and honeyed mead, the kind that clings to your tongue and promises warmth against the chill. The moment feels heavier than any simple meal or song. Here, the stakes are more than just full bellies or fleeting laughter. Every face you see is marked by winter and war. But now, as the Lord speaks, the usual bravado slips away. His voice drops to a near whisper, coaxing everyone closer. You feel the press of shoulders against yours, the shared breath of men who have bled for each other and those still earning their place. This is not just camaraderie, it is the edge of something sacred. You sense the unspoken expectation, to belong, you must pledge yourself to the fire at the hall's heart. The Lord's words are simple but heavy, each syllable tumbling out in the old tongue, rough and low. He recites the comitatus oath, a ritual older than the hall itself. Loyalty is not a word here, it is a living thread. You hear and you feel the futures wagered on these vows, honor promised, protection assured, and the spectre of exile for those who fail. The fire snaps, and the shadows seem to lean in, listening. There is a pattern to this. Each man, in turn, grips the Lord's forearm, palm to palm, and swears by the gods and the hearth. You notice how even the youngest, whose voice trembles, stands a little taller after reciting the words. The oath is less a speech than a lifeline, a quiet contract that binds every heart to the hall's living core. The room's warmth feels deeper now, as if the flames themselves approve. Outside, storms rumble, but inside, the ritual shields you. The cold cannot reach past the ring of warriors, the circle of trust carved out by oath and memory. You realize the tension is real. Not all bonds are forged in battle. Some are shaped in firelight, in the low hum of song and the steady gaze of those who would die for you. There is a weight to this belonging, and you sense the risk in standing apart. The sensory world draws you further in. Mead passes from hand to hand, its sticky sweetness coating your lips. Roasting meat crackles over the flames, juices hissing as fat drips into embers. The smell of wood smoke and sweat weaves through the air, grounding you in the present, yet hinting at the wild world beyond the door. Every detail sharpens the feeling that you are part of something ancient and unbreakable. Then a pattern interrupt. The Lord's gaze fixes on a newcomer, a stranger at the edge of the circle. The room stills. You feel every eye shift, measuring, weighing. The oath is an invitation and a test. Will the stranger take the leap, or remain forever outside the warmth? The answer is suspended in the hush, a reminder that survival in this world depends on more than swordplay. In this moment, you understand the stakes anew. If the oath is broken, trust splinters, and the hall itself becomes just timber and thatch. The ritual is more than tradition. It is the glue that holds memory, loyalty, and survival together. Without it, there is only the cold, and the knowledge that stones have claimed better men than you. A short breather settles in the air, giving you space to absorb the consequence. Everyone's future here depends on shared trust. The hush is broken by a ripple of laughter, low and nervous, as the newcomer nods and steps forward. The Lord's hand extends, and the stranger repeats the ancient words, voice steady despite the gravity. Warriors lean inward, some nodding, others watching with narrowed eyes. You catch the subtle shift, acceptance, but with a reminder that trust must be earned again and again. The fire crackles louder, as if marking the transition. With the oath renewed, the hall exhales. Laughter grows bolder, and cups are raised. The rituals here are not just for show. They are the invisible scaffolding that keeps fear and suspicion at bay. Outside, the wind howls, but here, inside the hall, the bonds feel ironclad. Without warning, a hound noses under the benches, drawn by the scent of meat. Its tail thumps against your boots, and for a heartbeat, even the most hardened warriors grin like children caught stealing honey. The tension dissolves, replaced by a wave of warmth that ripples around the fire. The moment is fleeting, but its effect lingers. You recognize the irony. The forces that threaten the hall, storms, hunger, betrayal, are kept at bay by rituals that seem, on the surface, simple. In reality, these customs are as necessary as any blade or shield. Without them, the group would fracture under the weight of suspicion. You find yourself thinking of modern parallels. Office team-building retreats might lack firelight and mead, but they echo the same need: belonging, trust, and the quiet relief of knowing you are not alone. The stakes may feel less dire, but the hunger to be part of something bigger remains unchanged. A warrior nearby, cheeks flushed from drink, begins a low song. The melody winds through the hall, picked up by others, each voice adding a layer of memory. The song tells of ancient battles and lost friends, its rhythm as steady as the heartbeat of the group. You see how the ritual of song, like the oath, weaves the past into the present. There is a twist here, too. The words of the song are half mournful, half defiant. Even as the verses celebrate victory, they do not shy away from loss. This is not empty bravado. It is a reckoning with the cost of loyalty. The firelight glints on tear tracks and scars alike. A breather follows, letting the truth settle. Memory and grief are stitched into every gathering, never far from the surface. As the song fades, the Lord's voice returns, softer now. He speaks not of war, but of kin, of land, of the fragile peace that settles after blood has been spilled. You realize the comitatus oath is more than a warrior's promise. It is a vow to remember, to carry the weight of those who came before, and to hold the line for those yet to come. The Scop's voice starts low, threading through the smoky haze, and you feel the hair rise on your arms as memory stirs. He sings of ancient kin, heroes who bled for the hall, their names tattooed into the beams above. Each line is a knot, tying the living to the dead, reminding you that your place here is both earned and watched. These tales are not just entertainment. They are the code you live by, the map to follow when the world outside turns hostile. With every verse, the weight of tradition settles gently on your shoulders, as if these stories are the true armor you wear. The hush lingers, and you sense that to forget these stories would leave you exposed. If you let them slip, you risk standing unprotected. A sudden laugh bursts from one of the benches, breaking the spell for a breath, and for a moment the Scop's eyes flash with wry amusement. The moment passes, but you catch the subtle dance, how the Scop weaves humor and warning, praise and gentle rebuke into a single thread. The hall's warmth becomes more than physical, a shared pulse that makes you ache for belonging. In that flicker of laughter, you see how the stories let the hall breathe, making space for both joy and sorrow. Every tale is a lesson, but the lessons never land hard. They settle slow, like embers in the mind. If the tales were to stop, the hall would lose its heart. The Scop slips into a new tale, this one sharper, the rhythm quickening. You listen as he recounts a fateful hunt, wolves circling the edge of a frost-bitten wood, the outcome uncertain. The warriors lean closer, drawn in by the danger and thrill, but also by the message beneath. Survival is not just strength, but loyalty and cunning. The room tenses, each person unconsciously mirroring the gestures of those in the story. The line between past and present blurs, and you realize every listener is searching for themselves in these words. If they fail to learn, the next hunt may end in loss. A draft creeps in under the door, cold as the world outside, and you become suddenly aware of the stakes. Here, ritual is not just comfort. It is the glue holding the fragile fabric of community together. The Scop stories are the heartbeat of the hall, but they are also the warning bell. To forget is to drift, to lose your place in the chain that links each soul to the next. You sense the silent pact, remember, or risk being forgotten. That pact hums beneath every song, every shared glance, an invisible shield against the chaos beyond these walls. Without this shield, the hall would be vulnerable. As the tale winds on, the Scop's hands move deftly over the lyre, fingers plucking a melody older than the hall itself. The music seeps into your bones, mingling with the warmth of the fire and the sweet burn of mead. For a heartbeat, you wonder how much of this is history, and how much is longing dressed in rhyme. The answer matters less than the feeling left behind, a sense that you are part of something bigger, and that each night like this is a rehearsal for dangers yet to come. The stories are instruction, but also comfort, a promise you do not face the world alone. If the comfort faded, courage might fade too. The Scop's narrative takes a turn, his voice dropping to a near whisper as he invokes a long-ago betrayal. You watch as the older warriors stiffen, eyes narrowing, hands tightening around mugs or blades. The lesson here is sharp. Loyalty is life, and the price of treachery is exile, or worse. The atmosphere thickens, and for a moment the fire seems to burn lower, throwing more shadow than light. The memory of old wounds presses in, but the Scop's tone is careful, offering warning without reopening ancient scars. The warning lingers. Betrayal brings ruin. A breath passes, and the room exhales as the story shifts again. Now a tale of forgiveness. A lost brother welcomed home after years in the wild. You see the tension ease, and the smiles return, some shy, some bold. The Scop's gift is not just in the telling, but in knowing when to let the hall's mood lift, when to remind everyone that mercy, too, is part of the code. You find yourself holding your own memories close, wondering which stories you would want the Scop to sing about you. The lesson is clear. Without forgiveness, the hall would fracture. The fire crackles, a fat log collapsing into sparks, and the shadows flicker. You notice how the youngest at the benches lean forward, eyes wide, lips parted in awe. Every story is a seed, planted in hungry minds, shaping the heroes and outcasts of tomorrow. The rituals of the hall are not just for those who remember, but for those still learning what must never be forgotten. You are struck by the quiet urgency of it all, the sense that memory is as precious as bread and just as easily lost. If memory slips away, so does the future. Now the Scop raises his lyre and sings a verse everyone knows, a refrain that circles the room like a friendly ghost. Voices join in, some tuneless, some proud, and the hall vibrates with shared song. For a moment, all divisions vanish, old rivalries, fresh grudges, even the memory of hardship. You feel the power of belonging, the way it weaves itself around your heart, binding you to these people, this place, this moment. It is a rare kind of safety, as fragile as it is fierce. Should this unity fail, the whole would splinter. The scop pauses, letting the last note hang in the smoky air, and you sense the shape of silence, the kind that listens, not just waits. In that hush, you remember the world outside, wild, cold, bristling with threats that care nothing for story or song. The mead hall feels like the last bright lantern in a forest of shadows. You realize, with a shiver, that the rituals here are not just for show. They are the difference between hope and despair, between standing together and being picked off, one by one. The consequence is stark. Without ritual, hope flickers out. A ripple of applause, rough and sincere, breaks the spell. The scop bows, face flushed with effort and pride, and the hall bursts back into life, laughter, arguments, the scrape of mugs on wood. But the stories linger, drifting through the room like the faint smell of pine smoke. You sense that everyone is a little changed, even if no one says so. The hall feels tighter knit, the air warmer, the shadows less menacing. This is how memory becomes muscle, how loyalty is forged, not in grand declarations, but in nights like this, when the world is held at bay by song and fire. If these nights ceased, the bonds would weaken. You look around and see the oldest warrior clapping the youngest on the back, a silent lesson passed from one generation to the next. There are no written rules here, no scrolls or codices to consult. Everything you need to know is sung, performed, lived out in the flicker of firelight. The scop stories are the law of the hall, binding in ways that go deeper than any oath. You realize that the measure of a person here is not just in battle, but in memory and mercy. Lose the stories, and you lose the law. Another log is tossed onto the fire, sending up a flurry of sparks, and the shadows leap. The night outside grows colder, but inside the heat is almost overwhelming. The mead flows freely, loosening tongues and smoothing old grievances. The stories have done their work. For now, the hall is safe, the community whole. Still, you sense the rituals are never finished, always waiting to be renewed. Without renewal, the safety fades. You stand at the center of the mead hall, dusk pressing in against thick timber walls, while firelight flickers over the faces of warriors and kin. The Lord, broad-shouldered and heavy with intent, rises from his carved seat, a streak of gold glinting in his fist. The hush falls quickly, though not completely. You still hear the low crackle of the hearth, the gentle plink of a horn settling on wood. The scent of roasting meat blends with honeyed mead, warmth radiating to your skin as the world outside slips into chill and shadow. This is the hour for gifts, and the old stories say everything turns on this axis of loyalty. The air feels thick with expectation. You sense that what happens next will echo far beyond tonight, and every heart in the room seems to beat a little faster. The ring in the Lord's hand is no mere ornament. Light dances on its ridged edge, every eye in the hall tracking its movement with a kind of hunger. When the Lord calls a name, the room seems to lean closer, breath held in suspense. The chosen, one of the younger warriors, his beard patchy, steps forward, shoulders squared, though you notice a tremor in his hands. As the ring passes from the Lord's palm to the warrior's, something more than metal changes hands. There's a silent promise forged here, one that will linger in battle cries and in quiet, uncertain dawns. The consequence is clear. A new bond is sealed, and the warrior's future is forever altered by this moment. You can almost feel the weight of that promise in the air. You notice how the mood shifts after every gift. Faces flush with pride, but beneath that, a heavier feeling stirs. Perhaps calculation. Perhaps the quiet knowledge that generosity always asks for something in return. The old saying comes to mind. A rich gift is a debt disguised as favor. The warrior with the new ring now owes the Lord more than strength in battle. He owes memory, loyalty, and the readiness to repay with blood or story. The gifts are threads, each one binding another person to the invisible tapestry of the whole. With every exchange, the web of obligation tightens. To receive is to be claimed, and that claim will not be forgotten. There's a rhythm to this ritual, as steady as a drumbeat. You watch armbands traded for oaths, brooches for whispered thanks, a simple cloak draped across hunched shoulders. Whether plain or ornate, these objects carry the weight of survival. The crowded hall feels both sheltering and charged. Every new gift marking a shift in who belongs and who will be remembered. The crackle of the hearth keeps time, as if the fire itself is measuring each promise. Each gesture is small, but the consequences ripple through the room. With every ripple, the balance of the hall shifts a little more. Someone laughs, a deep, rolling sound that spills over the benches and is quickly met by a smaller, brighter chuckle. You realize the ritual isn't all solemnity. The hall breathes with the low hum of song and the occasional wry comment. A warrior nudges his neighbor, making a quiet joke about the Lord's taste in cloaks. Even here, in the heart of tradition, there's space for irreverence. The sense of belonging is stronger for it, and you feel how laughter softens the tension that hangs in the air. Still, beneath the laughter, the old expectations remain. As the gifts circulate, you catch the glint of a silver brooch, its surface scratched by years of wear. The woman who receives it, her hair bound in a tight plait, nods deeply, her eyes shining with gratitude and resolve. In that moment, you see that these tokens are not just for warriors. The whole hall is drawn into the web of obligation and memory. The exchange binds each person, whether by blood, by deed, or by the silent promise to witness and remember. To accept a gift is to accept a place in the whole story, and the cost of forgetting is never small. The memory of this moment will be carried forward. You feel the weight of expectation settle on your shoulders. Here, survival is shared. The warmth of the hall, the fullness of your belly, even the echo of your name in a song, all depend on this delicate network of giving and receiving. If you are overlooked tonight, you know the sting will linger for months. The absence of a gift is its own message, as loud as any song. To be seen is to be woven into the story. To go unnoticed is to drift toward the cold. The stakes are as real as the fire's heat, and the consequences for those left out are lasting. The air thickens with anticipation as the Lord pauses, eyes sweeping the crowd. You sense an invisible ledger at work, who has bled, who has sung, who has stood guard through the night. Sometimes the gifts follow the expected pattern. The bravest, the cleverest, the most loyal are rewarded. But every so often, the Lord surprises everyone. He calls an unexpected name, and the room shifts, a new current running through it. In these moments, the rules feel both ancient and alive, and you wonder who will be chosen next. A hush falls as a young servant is beckoned forward. She stands, hands clasped, uncertain whether she should approach. The Lord extends a simple cloak, its weave more practical than grand. The hall holds its breath. This is not tradition as usual. The gesture is both reminder and warning. All are watched, and anyone might be lifted or left behind. When the cloak settles on her shoulders, the firelight catches her smile, small but fierce. The consequence is immediate. The shape of the community changes, and everyone feels the shift. You sense that nothing will be quite the same after tonight. You sense the recalibration. Alliances tightening, jealousies simmering, hope rekindled in unexpected corners. The hall is a living system, its rules old, but its variables new every night. Even as you watch, you know you are being watched in turn. Each unexpected gift sends ripples through the crowd, and you wonder where you stand. The suspense lingers, every glance a reminder that nothing in the hall goes unnoticed. The next name called could change everything. A song rises again, this time with an edge of mischief. A grizzled warrior, his face mapped with scars, leans in and mutters that the Lord's generosity is as heavy as a winter cloak. You catch the joke, and so does the Lord, who answers with a raised brow and a half smile. The humour softens the obligation, making the bonds feel less like chains and more like the familiar weight of kinship. The laughter is a balm, but you know the expectations remain. The web of duty is only hidden, never gone. You begin to notice the repetition in the ritual, the way each gift is echoed by a toast, each vow by a chorus. The pattern is comforting, almost hypnotic. Yet beneath it all, a current of tension runs. Who will repay their debt? Who will falter when called? The fire pops, sending sparks into the smoky haze. The stakes are clear. To belong is to be counted on, and to be counted on is to be accountable. The rhythm of the hall demands nothing less, and the cost of failure is never far away. You are seated near the heart of the timber hall, deep in the winter of early medieval Anglo-Saxon England, as the Yule festival begins its slow, deliberate unfurling. Tonight, the walls seem to draw closer, not in menace, but with the thick warmth of shared purpose. The benches are crowded, warriors pressed shoulder to shoulder, elders hunched over their cups, children peeking from the edges, drawn in by the pull of ritual. The air is heavy with the sweet tang of honeyed mead and the deep, earthy aroma of roasting meat. Firelight flickers across faces, drawing out the gold in hair and beard. You feel the heat of the hearth pressing against the cold that gnaws just outside the door. Within this circle, darkness is not ignored. It's courted, acknowledged, and pushed back with every ritual act. The low thrum of song rises, ancient words falling and lifting in a cadence older than the beams above. Each note is a small defiance, a reminder that winter's hunger and fear are met by something stronger, the stubborn continuity of community. Warriors trade glances, half amusement and half challenge, as the first of the festival's songs lifts up. The sound is rough but alive, a promise that no one here will face the cold alone. Even the laughter is sharper tonight, edged with both relief and superstition. And always, there is the sense that if the rituals falter, the cold outside waits for its chance. The Yule festival is no simple celebration. Every gesture holds weight. When a platter is passed, hands clasp it with care, and the act of sharing becomes a solemn contract. A bite of bread, a slice of meat, these are tokens, exchanged with the gravity of a warrior's oath. Even the smallest crumb feels significant, as if it might tip the balance between good fortune and disaster. The oldest woman in the hall, her hair a silver halo in the firelight, murmurs a blessing as she hands you a cup. The mead is thick and golden, its heat lingering long after you swallow. Outside, the wind claws at the thatch, but inside, the rhythm of the feast gathers force. Each detail is deliberate, the sequence of serving, the order of songs, the careful way the fire is stoked and fed. Tonight, every act is a ritual, a barrier against the uncertainty pressing in from the dark. You sense the unspoken agreement. If the circle holds, the world will turn toward spring again. Someone carves a rune into a scrap of wood and tosses it into the flames, the crackle briefly drowning the hum of voices. If the balance tips, fortune might shift with it. The stakes are quiet but absolute. If you belong, you eat, you drink, you are warmed. If you do not, well, the winter outside is patient and thorough. The Yule festival is the mead hall's answer to both the cold and the unknown, a test of who is trusted, who is remembered, whose stories will be retold when the nights grow short. The glow of the hearth feels earned, a privilege bound to loyalty and memory. You watch a young warrior, face shadowed and uncertain, as he is offered the first cut of meat, a sign that he is counted among the circle, at least for now. The songs shift in tone, moving from mournful to raucous, and you realize how much of this night is about balance. Grief and hope, fear and courage, all held together by the rituals that have shaped this place for generations. The laughter grows louder as the mead flows, but beneath it runs a current of seriousness, a sense that every jest is a shield against the dark. You catch the dry humor in a warrior's voice as he toasts the luck of the hall, his words both a joke and a spell. For a moment, the boundary between past and present blurs, as if the rituals here echo in every winter gathering you've ever known. The consequence lingers. To be remembered is to be safe within the circle. A hush falls as the oldest warrior stands, his back straight despite the years. He begins the night's main ritual, a tale of ancestors, of winters survived and foes defeated, of the bargains struck between people and fate. The children lean in, wide-eyed, while the elders nod at each familiar turn. Each name spoken aloud is a thread in the fabric of belonging. You realize that this kind of storytelling is not just entertainment. It is a map, a guide for how to endure when the world seems intent on swallowing the light. The fire pops, sending a shower of sparks dancing upward. You feel the subtle shift in the air, a collective breath held, a pause as the story reaches its most dangerous moment. The tension is real, but so is the trust that the tale will find its way back to hope. In that silence, you sense the heartbeat of the hall, steady and insistent. The rituals do not erase fear, but they give it a shape, a place to live where it cannot consume. A child's laugh breaks the spell, and the room exhales, the danger past for now. If the stories fail, the darkness presses closer. Suddenly, the door bangs open. A gust of cold, spinning smoke and shadows into the light. Every head turns, hands moving to blades out of habit. But it's only Osric, the shepherd, cheeks red and arms full of wood. For a heartbeat, the tension is sharp. Then it dissolves into laughter, relief rippling through the hall. This is how the circle holds, by turning threat into story, danger into ritual, fear into the shared warmth of the present. The consequence is clear. The group has faced another test, and the boundaries of trust have grown stronger. You watch as Osric is welcomed back, his bundle added to the fire with a flourish. The flames leap higher, casting strange shadows on the rafters. The hall seems to breathe with new life, the mood shifting from wary to exuberant. Someone starts a new song, this one rowdy and fast, and suddenly every foot is stamping in time. The floor trembles, the benches creak, and you feel the energy coil and release, as if the walls themselves are singing. In this moment, the Yule festival is no longer just a ritual. It is a living force, reshaping the night with every note and gesture. If the welcome had faltered, suspicion might have lingered. Food is passed around again, and the seriousness returns. Each person takes only what they need, but the act of sharing is observed by all. You notice how the youngest children are served first, a reversal of the usual order, as if to declare that hope for the future outweighs pride or hunger. The elders watch closely, their eyes sharp, measuring loyalty in small, silent ways. When a dish is dropped, the laughter is quick but never cruel, and the mistake is folded into the night's rhythm. The fire's warmth is matched now by the heat of bodies packed close. You feel your own pulse slow as the rituals settle into repetition, song, story, toast, and laughter, weaving a pattern older than memory. The outside world fades, and the only reality is the circle of light and sound. The mead is sweet, sticky on your tongue, and the taste lingers as you listen to the next tale begin. Once again, the stakes are refreshed. Belonging is not a given, but a prize, earned anew with every ritual act. If the rituals break, the circle will not hold. As the Yule festival begins its slow, deliberate unfurling, in the deep heart of an Anglo-Saxon night, you find yourself among warriors on rough timber benches, the fire's orange glow pulling faces from the smoky dark. The mead hall is alive, but the celebration is quieter now, warmer, slyer, the kind that lingers in the corners. Around you, voices drop, and laughter ripples from one end of the hall to the other, hanging in the air like the sweet scent of roasting meat and honeyed mead. This is the hour when humour becomes more than amusement. It's a shield, a signal, as vital as the sword at your hip. The tension of the day slips away, replaced by the hush of shared anticipation. You lean in, waiting for what comes next, knowing that in this moment, laughter is as necessary as breath. If you fail to join in, you risk being left outside the warmth of belonging. The jests come quickly now, sharp as flint and twice as bright. A young warrior tosses a quip about a rival's missing sandal, and the table shakes with laughter. But it's not just the punchline that binds you. It's the shared glances, the knowing smiles, the rise and fall of voices over the hearth's crackle. The humor here isn't for outsiders. It's a private code, a way of saying we belong, we endure. You catch yourself grinning, surprised at how easily the cold slips away, as if laughter itself pushes back the dark. Each joke draws you deeper into the circle, and you sense that to miss a beat is to risk being left on the outside. Miss a moment, and you might lose your place in the group. A moment later, the laughter turns wry, almost daring fate to take notice. Someone recounts the tale of a disastrous hunt, complete with exaggerated animal noises and a mock-heroic tumble off a log. In the flickering firelight, faces blur and shadows dance, and for a breath you forget the darkness pressing against the walls. Even the chieftain is drawn in. He raises his cup, feigning outrage, and the crowd roars louder. Here, mockery is woven with respect, each jab a subtle test of strength and wit. The suspense lingers as you realize that a single misstep could shift the mood. Lose your footing here, and you risk your place in the group. You sense how these moments build trust, as real as any oath sworn by the hearth. Even as the jest fades, its afterglow lingers, binding you to the others in a wordless pact. Underneath the laughter, you feel the undercurrent of fear, the wild beyond the hall, the memory of raids, the ache of loss. Humor is how you keep that fear at bay. It's a ritual, as crucial as song, as sacred as the meal that came before. If the laughter falters, the shadows will press in, and the warmth of belonging could vanish. The chieftain's wife, Wolfwin, leans in and delivers a line so dry it might crack in the frost. The warriors around her double over, and you notice her eyes, sharp and quick, measuring the room's mood. She knows exactly how far to push, how to turn sorrow into laughter and back again. In this hall, irony is a secret weapon, sharper than any spear. It lets you mock misfortune, to thumb your nose at fate, but only so far. The laughter is not careless, it's calculated, careful, a practiced dance around the edge of what can and cannot be said. Step too far, and the cost is silence, or worse, exile from the circle. As the hour grows late, the songs soften, voices lowering in the dimming light. Yet humor lingers, a thin thread tying you all to the present. Someone hums a tune with a new lyric, half truth, half dare, and others pick it up, weaving sly jokes into the melody. The fire's heat is fading, but the warmth of shared laughter remains. You feel it settle in your bones, as much a part of you as your own name. If the thread of humor snaps, the hall's unity could unravel. You notice the games of irony are not just for amusement. They serve to test boundaries, to challenge the strong without open rebellion. A story is told of a warrior who claimed he could outdrink the hall's best, only to wake shivering outside, covered in soot. The tale is met with laughter, but the lesson is unmistakable. Pride is best tempered with humility. In a world where life is uncertain, humor is a way to remember that everyone, even the mighty, is vulnerable. The message is clear. Forget this, and you risk isolation, or worse, humiliation. The sensory world of the mead hall sharpens as the fire burns lower. You smell the last of the meat, hear the scrape of wooden cups on benches, feel the press of bodies drawing closer for warmth. The laughter now is quieter, edged with something bittersweet, almost defiant. The jokes are gentler, aimed at old stories and shared memories. Each one is a reminder that you've survived another day together. If you let this comfort slip, the cold outside will seem all the more real. Suddenly, a new voice breaks through. A young thrall, emboldened by the hour, dares to tell a joke about the chieftain's hunting dog. Instead of anger, the chieftain laughs first, his approval rippling through the crowd like a blessing. In that moment, the thrall is seen. The hall's hierarchy softens, the line between lord and servant blurring for a heartbeat. You sense the importance of this. Here, humor is a rare equalizer, a moment when everyone shares the same firelight. But cross the line, and the fragile peace can shatter. This is how memory is made in the mead hall, not just through epic songs, but through laughter that echoes long after the embers die. You realize that tonight's jokes will become tomorrow's stories, retold on cold mornings and in the hush before sleep. The warmth you feel is more than fire. It's the comfort of belonging, the knowledge that you're woven into the fabric of this place. Even the shadows seem less menacing when laughter is near. Lose this thread, and the stories may turn to silence. Every so often, you catch yourself glancing at the door, half expecting some danger from the dark. But the rituals inside, the jokes, the songs, the playful insults, hold the night at bay. In this world, survival is not just about strength, but about knowing when to laugh, when to deflect fear with a well-placed jest. The stakes are real. Humor is a shield, a way to keep dread from creeping in. You see now that laughter is as necessary as bread. Without it, fear would slip in like a cold wind. The hour grows late, and the mead runs thin. Still, no one leaves. The warriors press closer, drawn by the promise of one last story, one last punchline. Outside, the wind howls, but inside you are wrapped in warmth, in the safety of shared defiance. The mead hall is more than shelter. It is a fortress of spirit, held up by ritual and the quiet rebellion of laughter. A sudden hush falls as someone proposes a toast, not to victory or wealth, but to the fools who keep the shadows away. Cups are raised, the moment stretching as the fire flickers low. The irony is not lost on anyone. In a world so precarious, laughter itself is a small act of bravery. You drink, feeling the sweetness of mead on your tongue and the weight of the room's attention. This is the ritual that matters most. If the ritual breaks, so does the courage to face the night. As the fire burns down to embers, the songs and stories wind to a close. You linger, unwilling to let go of the warmth, the camaraderie, the sense that for tonight, at least, you are safe. The humor that filled the hall does not vanish. It settles in your chest, a quiet comfort against the cold. Tomorrow, the world will be dangerous again. But for now, you are part of something larger, something enduring. Let go too soon, and the cold will claim you before dawn. If the laughter fades, the fortress weakens. The mead hall glows with the last embers of fire, deep in early medieval Anglo-Saxon England, as you sit shoulder to shoulder with warriors whose laughter now fades into a hush. The timber walls seem to lean closer, as if listening to each word you trade with your companions. The scent of roasted meat lingers in the air, thick and sweet, braided with the smoky perfume of burning oak. Your cloak is heavy with warmth, a shield against the chill that presses just beyond the door. Around you, the final rituals of the night unfold with a gentle gravity. Here, farewells are never rushed. You clasp hands with the man beside you, feeling the roughness of his palm and the press of calluses that speak of battles fought and survived. He meets your gaze, eyes bright in the flickering firelight, and for a moment, words seem unnecessary. The silence is its own language, thick with meaning. Outside, the wind rattles the shutters, reminding you that the world beyond the hall is cold and uncertain. You notice that the benches, once crowded and noisy, are thinning. A few voices still murmur, low and careful, as if afraid to break the spell. Someone stands, stretching, and the motion ripples through the room like the last wave in a tide. Your own limbs are slow to respond, reluctant to surrender the comfort of the hearth. In the dimness, the shadows stretch long and soft, painting the floor with memories. As you gather your things, the rituals of parting draw your attention. Each farewell is more than a simple goodbye. It is a binding, a thread woven into the larger tapestry of the hall. You see a young warrior touch the carved beam above the hearth, a silent promise to return, or perhaps a plea for protection. The small gestures, unnoticed by outsiders, hold the weight of tradition. Each one is a promise renewed. You catch the scent of honeyed mead clinging to your sleeve. It is a small reminder of the feast, of stories shared and loyalties renewed. The mead hall's warmth does not remain within its walls alone. It seeps into your bones, a memory you will carry into the night. The cold outside may be sharp, but the bonds forged here are sharper still. You step toward the door, and the air changes. The hush deepens, the fire snaps, and a last song rises, soft at first, then swelling with each syllable. It is not for entertainment now, but for remembrance. The melody is old, a thread that runs back through generations, binding the living to the dead. Even if you do not know all the words, the rhythm carries you, a reminder that you are part of something larger. In the glow of the dying hearth, the faces around you are etched with quiet satisfaction. Some have found new allies. Others have settled old grudges with a nod or a clasp. It strikes you that survival here is not just about strength, but about belonging. The rituals have done their work. You are woven into the story of the hall, as much as the smoke is woven into your cloak. Once, you might have thought these gatherings were only about feasting and drink. Now, You see the layers beneath, the subtle negotiations, the unspoken agreements, the loyalties secured over shared hardship. It is not so different from the ties you form over late-night pizza or group chats in your own world. The shapes have changed, but the need remains. A sudden gust rattles the door, and for a moment everyone pauses. The outside world feels close, almost threatening in its emptiness. But inside you are safe, wrapped in warmth and ritual. The fire's glow is a shield against the unknown, a promise that you do not stand alone. The night has its own rhythm, and as it wanes, so does the energy within the hall. You sense the ebb in every movement, every quiet farewell. The last of the mead is poured, the final scraps of meat claimed. Even the fire seems to sigh, settling lower, as if reluctant to let go. In this final hour, the stakes are plain. Without these rituals, loyalty might falter, memory might fade, and the hall itself would lose its heartbeat. You realize that belonging is not a given. It is built, night after night, in moments like these. To step into the cold alone would be to risk more than just the chill. Your hand lingers on the door's iron ring, cool and solid beneath your fingers. For an instant, you hesitate, reluctant to cross the threshold. The voices behind you blend with the crackle of the hearth, a soft chorus that promises you will be remembered here. The fire's warmth clings to your back as you push the door open. Stepping into the night, the cold bites your cheeks, sharp as flint. Your breath rises in white clouds, but you hardly notice. The memory of the hall is a second skin, insulating you from the darkness. You glance back, and through the smoky glass, you catch the last flicker of firelight, a beacon against the void. The path away from the hall is uneven, scattered with frost, and the footprints of those who left before you. Each step crunches beneath your boots, a quiet echo of the hall's fading song. You feel the weight of the night, but also the lightness of belonging. The bonds forged in warmth do not break in the cold. Somewhere in the distance an owl calls, its cry lonely but not mournful. You walk with purpose, guided by the memory of laughter and the taste of mead on your tongue. The night seems less hostile when you carry the hall's warmth within you. There is comfort in knowing you are not alone. You recall the faces gathered around the hearth, the stories spun between sips of mead. Each tale was a thread, binding you tighter to those who shared it. Even the quietest among you spoke with their eyes, their gestures, a language older than words. The rituals may be over, but their echoes linger. In your world, you might call this community or belonging. Here, it is survival. The difference is one of necessity, not sentiment. Without these gatherings, the bonds that hold the hall together would fray, leaving each member vulnerable. The promise of return is as vital as food or fire. As you walk, you feel the scent of smoke and honeyed drink clinging to your cloak. It is a badge of honor, a mark that you were there, part of something enduring. You know you will wash it away in time, but the memory will last longer. The rituals have left their mark. The mead hall recedes behind you, its lights dimming, but the sense of connection does not fade. Even in the quiet of the night, you hear the echoes of song, the low hum of camaraderie. It is as if the hall follows you, a shadow stitched to your heels. The night is less empty for it. You wonder how many winters these walls have seen, how many bonds have been forged in fire and song. Each gathering leaves its trace, on the timber, on the people, in the stories that will be told long after the embers die. The hall is more than a building. It is a living memory. It is early evening in Anglo-Saxon England. You linger at the threshold of the Timber Mead Hall, sharp air biting your cheeks, the quiet of distant cattle humming beyond the frost. Inside, firelight spills across packed benches where warriors and kin press close. The scent of roasting meat and honeyed mead clings to your skin, while laughter and song drift through the smoky air. You pause, letting warmth seep into your bones. This is more than shelter from the cold. This is the living heart of the village, pulsing beneath every ritual, every vow, every shared cup. If you step inside, you join something larger than yourself. The choice is yours, and it will shape your place among them. The hearth at the center crackles, orange and gold, its heat stretching even to the farthest corners. Here, fire is not just for warmth or cooking. It is the sun reborn indoors, a symbol of life and protection in a world thick with night. Every face is half lit, half shadowed, making even the oldest warriors mysterious, their stories hidden in the flicker. As the cupbearer moves among the benches, the clink of wooden mugs becomes a kind of music, underscoring the steady rhythm of the evening. The mead, sweet and heady, passes from hand to hand, each sip a silent oath that binds you to the others. If you break that bond, you risk more than a cold night outside. The consequences can echo far beyond these walls. You settle onto a rough plank beside Wulfstan, whose beard still holds crumbs from the last course. His laughter rumbles in his chest as he leans in to recount the tale of a wolf hunt gone sideways. The words are half boast, half warning, and everyone listens, eager for both thrill and lesson. In this hall, stories are more than entertainment. They are currency, a way to stake your place in the pecking order. Each tale told becomes a memory woven into the timber beams overhead. If you speak carelessly, you might find your place slipping away. Reputation, once lost, is hard to reclaim. A hush falls as the lord of the hall stands, his cloak trimmed with fur, eyes reflecting firelight. He raises a drinking horn, and the crowd answers with a cheer that shakes the rafters. This is the ritual of gift-giving, when the Lord honors loyalty with rings, blades, or sometimes a simple nod of respect. The gifts themselves matter less than the gesture. The real treasure is the bond, the unspoken promise that those who feast together will fight together, and if needed, die together. If loyalty falters, so does the very heart of the hall. Without loyalty, the bonds that hold the hall unravel. You watch as a young warrior receives a silver armband, his hands trembling as he bows his head. Around you, the older men nod in approval, remembering the first time their own worth was recognized in front of the hall. The moment hangs in the air heavy with meaning, before dissolving into a fresh round of toasts. The mead flows more freely now, loosening tongues and softening the edges of old grudges. For tonight, at least, you are all bound by the same fire. If grudges flare again, the peace may not last. The fragile unity here depends on these moments. Beneath the laughter you sense tension, a low current of rivalry, ambition, and memory. The mead hall is a place of peace, but only because everyone knows what waits beyond its walls. The wild is never far. Wolves in the forest, hunger in the fields, strangers with strange gods. In these gatherings, fear is held at bay, transformed into courage by ritual and repetition. The very act of coming together is a defense, as much as any shield or spear. If the hall's unity breaks, danger from the wild may creep in. The safety within is never guaranteed. A bard stands by the hearth, harp in hand, and begins to sing of old battles and ancient feuds. The song is both history and warning, a reminder that every victory is paid for with blood, and every feast with hard-won peace. You find yourself humming along, the melody familiar even if the words are new. In the flickering light, you glimpse faces shining with pride, others clouded by old wounds. The stories are theirs, and now, for a moment, they are yours too. If the stories fade, so does the memory of what binds you. Without memory, the ties that hold the group weaken. The night deepens, and the rituals grow more intimate. Oaths are sworn over the mead, hands clasped tight, eyes unblinking. You feel the weight of those promises, the knowledge that breaking them would mean exile, or worse, shame. The rules here are unwritten, but absolute. Loyalty is the price of belonging. You realize the mead hall is not just a building, but a crucible, shaping everyone who enters. If you fail these tests, you risk being cast out. Exile here is more than isolation. It is a kind of death. Outside, the wind rattles the shutters, but inside, the world is contained. The fire throws shadows that dance along the beams, and the warmth settles into your bones. You notice how the youngest children, allowed to stay up late for the feast, cling to their mother's skirts, eyes wide as they watch the warriors. It strikes you how every generation learns the same lessons, not from books, but from the rituals performed here, night after night. If the rituals are neglected, the lessons may be lost. The future depends on what is passed down. Suddenly, the Lord calls for silence, and the hall falls still. He speaks of those lost in battle, naming each with care, his voice thick with memory. The silence that follows is absolute, broken only by the soft crackle of the hearth. This is the ritual of remembrance, binding the living to the dead. You sense the stakes. These gatherings are not just about food or drink, but about holding on to the past and carrying it forward. If remembrance fades, so does the strength of the community. Forgetting would weaken everyone. As the Lord finishes, a murmur rises, gentle but insistent. The older women begin a song of mourning, their voices weaving through the smoky air like threads of silver. You feel the hairs on your arms rise, as if the spirits themselves are listening. The song shifts, almost imperceptibly, from sorrow to hope, a subtle reminder that life endures even in the shadow of loss. In that moment, you understand that the rituals here are not only about loyalty, but about survival itself. If hope dims, the will to endure may falter. Even the strongest can lose their way. You take another sip of mead, the sweetness lingering on your tongue. Around you, the conversation resumes, quieter now, more thoughtful. Wulfstan nudges you, muttering about the next hunt, and you laugh, grateful for the distraction. It is in these small moments, between the rituals, that real bonds are forged. Trust is not proclaimed, but built, one shared story, one silent understanding at a time. If trust is broken, no ritual can mend it easily. Once lost, trust is slow to return. The fire burns low, casting long shadows across the hall. You stretch your legs, feeling the ache of hours spent on the hard bench. The warriors closest to the hearth have begun to doze, their heads nodding with the rhythm of the night. Someone tosses another log onto the flames, and for a moment the hall is bright again, every face illuminated. You are struck by how fleeting these moments are, and how fiercely they are guarded. If the fire dies, so too does the gathering's spirit. The night would feel much colder.